Hi guys, thank you so much for the support. We've now reached 6 subscribers, so I really do appreciate it. So this video is going to be a follow-up on a previous video. I'm going to go into a deeper dive about voluntary lease extensions. Again, they can look straightforward, but legally there is a lot more happening behind the scenes. So a voluntary lease extension is negotiated directly between the leaseholder and the freeholder, outside the statutory procedure. That means that parties are free to negotiate number 1, the premium, number 2, the new lease term, number 3, ground rent provisions, and also amendments to the lease itself. This flexibility can be beneficial, but unlike the statutory route, the terms are not automatically controlled by legislation, which means the leaseholder must review the structure carefully. A voluntary lease extension is typically structured through a surrender and regrant. This means the existing lease is surrendered back to the freeholder, and a completely new lease is granted to the leaseholder. Legally, this is significant because the original leasehold estate comes to an end and is replaced by a new leasehold interest. So this is not simply an amendment to the existing lease, it creates a new legal estate. And that has important consequences for ground rent, mortgage lender security, registration, and title structure. Ground rent. This is one of the most important points to review in a voluntary lease extension, where the Leasehold Reform Ground Act 2022 applies. The common structure is that the existing ground rent continues during the remaining term of the current lease, and the newly extended period is granted at a peppercorn or nominal rent. So the ground rent may not immediately reduce to zero for the whole lease term. Instead, the existing rent can continue for the original unexpired term, with only the extended period becoming peppercorn. That is a critical distinction, because many leaseholders incorrectly assume a voluntary lease extension automatically mirrors the statutory position. It does not. Everything depends on negotiation and drafting. And even when an extension is voluntary, it is always sensible to instruct a specialist leasehold surveyor. A surveyor can advise on whether the premium being demanded is reasonable, and more importantly, the valuation can provide leverage during negotiations with the freeholder. A leaseholder negotiating without valuation advice may be negotiating from a significantly weaker position, particularly where the freeholder already understands the premium calculations and statutory comparison values. Let's have a look at the lender's position. If the property is mortgaged, lender consent becomes critical. The lender's charge is usually registered against the existing leasehold title, but following a surrender and regrant, that original leasehold title will usually close at Land Registry, and a completely new leasehold title is then created for the replacement lease. This creates an important security issue, because the lender must ensure its mortgage security continues onto the new title. So this is why lenders commonly require a deed of substituted security, sometimes called a deed of substitution. The purpose of this deed is to ensure the lender's security transfers properly onto the newly created leasehold title. In practice, the deed confirms the lender consents to the surrender and regrant, the lender's charge continues over the replacement lease, and the lender's priority position remains unaffected. And from the lender's perspective, continuity of security is fundamental. So at HM Land Registry, the old leasehold title is closed, a new leasehold title number is created, and the lender's charge must then attach to the replacement title. This means the conveyancer must carefully coordinate the surrender and regrant, the lender's consent, the deed of substitution security, and the registration application itself, because structurally, the transaction creates a completely new leasehold estate. So key takeaways. A voluntary lease extension is far more than simply adding years onto a lease. It involves negotiation of premium and ground rent, creation of a new leasehold estate, lender's consent and security protection, and careful registration mechanics. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or queries, please let me know in the comments below. I'm more than happy to assist. Again, it's not legal advice, just some guidance, for education. I'll be grateful. Please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for the support.